Hi there, you're listening to a podcast that's created and sponsored by Second Avenue Baptist Church. If you enjoy what you hear today, check out our website and app by visiting secondavenuembc.org. You can find our mobile app and tons more content, podcasts, sermons, and more by searching for Second Avenue on the Apple App Store or Google Play Store. With that being said, let's dive into today's episode.
Welcome to episode 54 of Decision Point. Today we're going to continue a series of questions regarding the creation of mankind, Noah and the Great Flood, and today the question, were there dinosaurs on the ark? As we begin today, sincere apologies to you, the listener, and to our guest this week, Ben Denny. We had recorded earlier last week, and the file was corrupted, so it was completely lost. And unfortunately, Ben was unable to join me today for the re-recording, so we will have him on as a guest speaker very, very soon. But as we begin today, open your Bibles or Bible app to Genesis chapter 6, verses 19, and we'll also jump over from there to Genesis 7. I'll be reading today out of the King James Version. The question again, were there dinosaurs on the ark? And to begin the whole thing, as just a reminder, that I am a creation literalist when interpreting the creation account in Genesis. I am also a literalist when it comes to interpreting the flood story. So that being said, I think it kind of follows suit where I'm going with this today, but I'm going to show you biblically and some extracurricular or extra biblical, rather, information regarding were there dinosaurs on the ark or not. So reading out of the King James Version today, Genesis 6, 19 through 20, it says, "And every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every kind into the ark. To keep them alive with you, they shall be male and female. Of the birds according to their kind, of the animals according to their kind, of every crawling thing of the ground according to its kind, and 2 of every kind will come to you to keep them alive." So that's just God's supernatural intervention saying that these animals will come to you of every kind, obviously except for the fish, and they'll be kept alive, male and female, 1 of each. Now jumping over to Genesis chapter 7, verse 2 through 3, he speaks of the clean beasts. It says, "Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by 7s, the male and female, and of beasts that are not clean by 2s, the male and his female, and the fowls also of the air by 7s, the male and female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth." So the whole end game of the salvation or saving of these animals was to repopulate the earth of the animal kinds that existed. Well, again, being a creation literalist, to me, the Bible clearly indicates that dinosaurs and every land animal, every land beast, as the King James Version puts it, was created on day 6. So it would come to just a logical conclusion that dinosaurs would have had to have been on the ark unless they had gone extinct previously. So that really lies in the question there for me. Were they extinct before the flood, or were they alive and made it onto the ark? Well, let's look at some extra biblical scientific evidence to kind of lead us to this discussion here today. Do you know that the first dinosaur was officially recognized in 1824 when the English naturalist William Buckland, he described this fossil he found of a large reptile. He named this animal the Megalosaurus, which literally means great lizard. He believed it was a carnivore. It was over 40 feet long, and it was as bulky as an elephant. At that time, there was no consensus on what to call it. It wasn't until 1842, that Sir Richard Owen coined the term dinosaur. Now, he either did it at this lecture he was giving in 1841 or in a published paper in 1842. So 1841, 1842, that's the first time we hear of the term dinosaur. So what were they called before that? Well, they went by many names. As a matter of fact, if you look in a dictionary, now you probably don't have access to a dictionary before the 1600s or before actually the 1800s, rather. They were called dragons. Yeah, and we see the term dragon in the Bible. But here's some more interesting information, extra biblical. There are many, many records of these dragons or these large lizard-like creatures living before the 1800s. We have historic records from people long after Noah that talk and drew and described and lived with and hunted these large reptilian animals. You can look these up. You can look these up just in a regular web search, but there are depictions of sauropods, four-legged dinosaurs, bipedal, two-legged dinosaurs in art caves in South America, actually all over the world, where you can see them being hunted by man. You can see them terrorizing and eating other animals. We also have it sculpted in South America on pottery. There are a lot of shards of pottery found that just have all sorts of stegosauruses, spike-tailed dinosaurs, bipedal, sauropods. Sometimes they're fighting. There's actually one instance where it has a picture of a large reptile bipedal dinosaur with a man inside of its belly and other men hunting it with spears. We have sculptures all over the world. Inscribed into King Nebuchadnezzar's wall in Babylonian, still to this day, is a sauropod, a four-legged, scaled dinosaur. And there are many more examples of this as well. Now, what's interesting about that on Nebuchadnezzar's wall is dinosaurs were depicted with scales, but the scales that were actually on some dinosaurs, not all, weren't even discovered until 2011. So how did the people who etched Nebuchadnezzar's wall know that some dinosaurs had scales? It's interesting when you start putting the logical pieces of this puzzle together. Aside from just paintings, we have some very reputable sources. Pliny the Elder, who lived around Jesus' time, born in 23 AD, he died in 79 AD. He was a naturalist who wrote about all the animals around him. He would study, he would describe, he would draw. Most of the animals, of course, were rather mundane. The lions, bears. But however, in several places, he refers to dragons and describes them as enormous creatures who can actually fight and kill elephants. From Pliny's descriptions, as well as dragons, he also described very large snakes. And we know, according to paleological records, the Titan boa existed. Well, he explained and described one large snake that he had witnessed to, perhaps as long as 120 feet in length. Very interesting. Well, someone else of a notable reputation would be Alexander the Great. Around 330 BC, as his soldiers marched into India, they found people that worshipped huge hissing reptiles that were homed and sometimes kept in caves. Those dinosaurs were also hunted for sport and other things that Alexander the Great writes about, or his scribe writes about. What about Marco Polo, getting a little bit closer to today's time? This is the last one we'll share for time's sake. But Marco Polo, in his travels on the Silk Road between 1271 and 1295 AD, he describes creatures that are 30 feet long, 7 foot thick, and had feet with 3 claws on each of them that walked to and fro from the water to drink. Also in India, he found snakes and huge serpents that were 10 paces in length and 10 spans in girth. That is about 50 feet long and about 100 inches in girth. At the forepart near the head, they had 2 short legs, each with 3 claws, as well as eyes larger than a loaf and very glaring. The jaws are wide enough to swallow a man, teeth large enough and sharp enough to destroy large animals. Their appearance is so formidable, these are Marco Polo's words, that neither man nor any kind of animal can approach them without terror. And then he mentioned some other ones of a smaller size being 8 to 6 or 5 paces long. He even reported that dragons were bred in China, and those dragons pulled the emperor's chariot. So very interesting, extra biblical, more scientific information for us, from still, though, we're looking at 800 years ago, approximately 750 years ago. But what if I told you there was also some more interesting information closer to date? Well, scientists have found intact soft tissue in dinosaur bones. They found many. The very first one we found was in 2005. Mary Schweitzer of North Carolina State University, she found collagen fibers in the fossilized legs of a Tyrannosaurus rex. According to scientific research, however, bone collagen should last up to maybe 650,000 years. But the Tyrannosaurus rex, according to their time scale, should have went extinct 65 million years ago. There's no way that the collagen should have survived this long. And on top of the bone collagen, they found soft tissue inside of the bone, intact blood vessels, and red blood cells. And again, according to scientific research, under pristine conditions, those should only last up to 10,000 years. So with even the scientific data we found, and there is so much more you can go and research, those things should only last around 10,000 years maximum. But yet we find example after example after example of intact blood vessels and red blood cells. And we see Marco Polo, Alexander the Great, Pliny the Elder, who all lived 2,000+ years after Noah's flood. Speaking of these large dragons who were still alive. So my logical conclusion, aside from the biblical account that all things, all animals, all land animals were created on day 6, and that all animals at that time would have been on the ark to be salvaged, to be saved, to be repopulate, it only goes to demonstrate to me, and in my humble opinion, that dinosaurs were, in fact, on the ark. And the last thing I'll say about that is, on the ark, the last objection most people have are, man, those dinosaurs are huge. How could they possibly fit? Well, as we talked about last week, the animals that got on the ark weren't all full-grown, mature animals. It would make more sense for God to bring juveniles who would have a longer lifespan in order to repopulate. Even if God had brought to Noah full-grown dinosaurs, do you know the average size of each dinosaur altogether is only the size of a sheep? So some interesting thoughts there about dinosaurs on the ark. Let me know what you think. And next week, we will touch the last question in this series of questions presented is, if dinosaurs were on the ark, when did they go extinct? As always, I want to thank you for joining me, and apologies as well to my special guest last week, Ben Denny, and all the file corruption we had. We'll get him back on very shortly. And again, looking forward to seeing you again next Monday, and join me then for another Decision Point.
Thank you for listening today, and if you enjoyed what you heard, consider leaving us a 5-star rating and review. It will help us reach more people just like you who need to hear this message. Also remember that you can stay connected with us by downloading our mobile app. Just search for Second Avenue spelled out on the App Store or Google Play Store. Thank you again for listening, and God bless.